Hello, this is Yaakov Cronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight we're going to continue in our series of 10-minute classes where we're talking tonight about Saturn in the first house. Until now, the 7th and Saturn in the 10th, and I was trying to explain in the last two classes, maybe I didn't make it clear enough, that really you determine how good a planet is in a house by seeing how compatible that planet is with the sign on the house of the cusp of the horoscope of Adam Arishon. For example, in the horoscope of Adam Arishon, the 7th house, the house of marriage, the house of his wife Eve, has Libra on the ascendant. So which planets will be good in the 7th house? You would assume that it should be, for example, Venus, which rules Libra, would be nice, and also Saturn, in some way, would be nice because it's exalted in the sign of Libra. Okay, and the same thing, we went to the 10th house, that Saturn is in honor in the 10th house, and Mars is exalted in the 10th house. The two malefics actually are at home in the 10th house, because both of them are, you need that they're planets, so you need to get ahead in your career. To get ahead in your career, to get to the top of your career, the top of your profession, you need the Saturnian and Martian skills. You need that strong drive of the Martian, to get ahead, to win, to be successful, and you need that Saturnian perseverance and patience and planning, and both of them together can bring you to the top. So you see that in the 10th house, really the malefics in a way are good. They're going to give you what you need to get to the top, right? To get to the top is not easy. It's like the example, let's say, of a prize fighter, if people know about boxing. So when you start, a person, when he starts out in his career, a boxer, he has easy fight. He starts off with easy people. People on a low-level boxing, and then as he works his way up, he continually gets harder and harder opponents, so stronger and stronger, until he gets to the top. Then all the people in the world, they want to fight him and defeat him. The more he gets higher, the more the other people want to come and fight him and defeat him. So it's all business is like that. To get to the top is not easy, and you need those malefics there. Now tonight we're going to talk about the first house. Well, the first house is a little different, right? The first house, Saturn, the first house of Adam Arishon, what's the planet on the cusp? It's Aries. And Saturn is in fall in Aries. Saturn is very, very weak in Aries. Right? Because why? When a planet is in fall, it can't express, it's weak because the planet can't express itself. Saturn is the planet of patience, of deliberation, of all sorts of things like that. And when you put it in Aries, Aries has no patience at all. So it can't express itself all right. Each one hurts the other. The Saturn is going to, hurt the Aries. It's going to cut him back, and the Aries is going to take away the patience of the Saturnian, the foresight, the planning ahead. And so it can be different in a certain way. It can be difficult. I would say in a certain way that Saturn in the first is much harder than, all things being considered, Saturn in the first is harder than Saturn in the 7th or 10th, because it's more than natural homes for them, 7 and 10. But if you put Saturn in the first, it's going to hold the person back, right? We talked about it, I think, in one of my longer classes, that the nature of soul that Adam was shown was an Aries rising, which is the ideal man. And the ideal man is the person with this tremendous drive to go ahead and to go after what he wants and to be fearless and not to worry and not to be afraid. And the Saturn isn't like that. The Saturn is, always looking ahead into the future to make sure there's not going to be any surprises. He's always planning, one step at a time. And so in the first house, it's going to hold back the nature of the person. Whatever sign the person is born in, if you have Saturn in the first, it's going to, in a way, hold him back. Right? There tend to be people born with Saturn in the first. They tend to have a difficult early part of their life. They're held back either by, their parents or by circumstances or poverty or the parents were divorced, whatever. And there was something that held him back, that he had to become very self-reliant and rely on himself. A lot of people are Saturn rising. And so it's a harder aspect. But then again, you have to always look at it, how strong is the Saturn, and what kind of quality the Saturn is in, and what kind of aspects it receives, and from which houses it comes, and it can always be modified by different things. Right? For example, let's say, for example, if we're looking at Saturn in the first house, so if it comes, say, from the 10th house, it means that Saturn is going to be connected to your career. Right? If you have a planet that, say you have Capricorn on the 10th house cusp, and you have Aries on the first house cusp, then you're going to have Saturn in Aries on the ascendant coming from the house of career. So you're going to have a career given to you. It'll be a Saturnian career. Right? And then also you have to check, so for example, if you have Saturn in Aries, Saturn is in fall in Aries, so you have to look at the dispositor of Saturn. Right? In other words, if Saturn now, let's say Saturn, the dispositor of Aries is Mars. And now let's say Mars is in the 10th house in Capricorn, then the Saturn suddenly becomes much better as the person gets older. Right? Because even though Saturn itself is in fall, its dispositor, Mars in Capricorn, is exalted, and it's on the top of the chart. So in other words, the person is going to get, in the beginning he's going to be very difficult, and then about the age of 30, 35, all of a sudden it's going to be much, much better. He's going to overcome his disadvantage. It indicates someone overcoming their disadvantage and becoming very successful. On the other hand, if you have Saturn in Aries and then Sun in, let's say, Libra, so Saturn's dispositor is also in fall. So that's going to make the ruler, in a sense, weaker. It could give eye trouble no, I wouldn't say that, the other way around. But let's say Saturn, its dispositor is also in fall, so that's going to weaken the planets. Even though they're in angles, they're very strong by being in angle, they're weakened by both of them being in fall. So it'll be harder for that person to overcome it. But again, you have to take other things into consideration also, the aspects and other things. So I'm just giving you an idea tonight how to judge Saturn in the first house. And it's not always, there's different degrees. Everything has to be judged in what degree, how strong it is, what kind of quality it's in, where it's coming from, where it's going to, what its aspects are, And next week, or our next class, we'll continue with Saturn in the 4th house and then go on to the other houses. I thank you all for listening.